minutes until showtime. 3 minutes until showtime. 2 minutes until showtime. 1 minute until showtime. 'Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1.
'Twas the night before Christmas when all through the land Fox News warned its viewers of a dastardly plan. The liberals were launching their war on the season to get rid of Christmas and commit acts of treason, removing decorations out of their sight and telling you that Santa and Jesus ain't white. Environmentalists who'll come right after your soul. They hate all things Christmas, especially the coal. They'll sneak in your house all dressed in their flannel and instead give the bad kids some new solar panels. They'll take up all decorations that please us. They'll even go after tiny baby Jesus. Now all these Fox lies cause such a frustration. Who would save us all from this misinformation? When live from the net there came lots of chatter. Could it be old St. Nick, or perhaps someone fatter? Broadcasting from New Orleans down in Louisiana, it was none other than Liberal Dan, coming to save the holiday season. busting through their lies with facts, logic, and reason. But I cannot do it myself, he exclaimed, so he called other groups, each one by name, on Christians, on Muslims, on Wiccans, on Jews, on Hindus and Buddhists, and atheists too. Let us all spread the word and tell them indeed that there's no war on Christmas, just one on greed. So instead of joining this manufactured fight, listen to Liberal Dan Radio. Talk from the left, that's right.
Welcome back to Liberal Dan Radio, Talk from the Left, that's right. This is your host, Dan Zimmerman, coming at you from New Orleans, Louisiana. To join the conversation, it's 914-803-4131. It's 914-803-4131. You could, of course, also join us in the chat on YouTube, youtube.com/Liberal Dan Radio. If you happen to be listening on Blog Talk Radio, that's the best place to listen, is on YouTube instead. If you're listening after the live broadcast, you can also leave your comments, questions, concerns, etc. on the show thread at liberaldan.com, facebook.com/liberaldan, at liberaldan radio on Twitter, or, of course, you can leave your comments on YouTube as well. It is the end of 2022, the last episode of Liberal Dan Radio, and we've had a lot of stuff going on this year, so we're going to try and go over as much of it as we can. Of course, last year, the year in review show ended up, I forget which topic we ended going long on, but we ended up not being able to talk about much of the year in review, and the actual year in review show happened in January instead of in December. So maybe, hopefully, we'll avoid that, and we'll be able to bring in the New Year's with a bang, so to speak. Because let's see, I think we talked a good bit about the recap of 2021 on the first show of the year, talked about the coup, insurrection, treason, the J6ers, etc. That was a big focus of the show, obviously, last year. We talked a lot about that as well. So that was the first show of the year. We did that. Yes, Jolie posted in the chat, if you do want to support the show, remember to subscribe, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and also you can become a Liberal Dan Radio patron. In 3 days, I am shutting down any more OG slots. So if you don't sign up for any of the remaining, there's a few left, I think, on the Minicast ones, and there's a few more on the regular ones. Once I've shut them down, you're not going to have the opportunity to get the OG shirts, which will be the black with the gold on them. And as soon as we settle dealing with my mother-in-law and her, health issues that she's dealing with, which is fine, but we've been very busy with that, so we haven't been able to produce those shirts yet for everybody. But we'll be getting to that soon. So, I mean, you may also still get shirts, regular shirts, but they're not going to be the snazzy black with gold on them. So you have until the end of the year to do that. So hop on that if you want. If you can't support the show monthly and just want to support me one time, you can, of course, Venmo me. Just do it, friends. And also you can buy me a cider. Go to liberaldan.com, click the buy me a cider button, or go to buymeacoffee.com/liberaldanradio, and you can buy me a cider there as well. Shouts out to all of the people who have supported Liberal Dan Radio so far on both Buy Me a Cider and Patreon. I got Aaron, Trucker John, Robert Reynolds, Wes, Kimchi have all bought me ciders this year. And on Patreon, we have Robert Reynolds, Wes, Bill P., Jolie, Julie Swenson, Aaron West, your boy Chris, Cesar, and Deminox, all supporting the show. And of course, Julie Swenson is the first Liberal Dan Radio producer. So thank you especially for supporting the show financially. I appreciate y'all. I appreciate every single one of you for helping this show grow from what it was at the beginning of the year to what it is now. So y'all have made this so much better, and I appreciate every one of you who come in every week supporting the show, having fun with me, helping me debate the folks on the right, when they're bringing on their ridiculousness. That, last week was interesting. I mean, we might have Gibson Media on again. I did miss the anti-Semitism count for one of them, which I'm surprised because I usually don't miss those. But I think I was trying to think of a rebuttal for something else that he said. But anyway, thank everybody who comes in. Got Trucker John, Jeff Curry, Kinky Streets, Jolie, Aaron, the Mod Squad, Wes. Who else am I missing? We got Agnes Scary in the chat. Thank you. I'm sure others will come by. Patty Whack, thank you for joining us as well today. I'm hoping for bigger and better things. I haven't hit my 1,000 subscriber mark yet, but maybe we'll do that. Maybe that'll be something we get done in 2023. So let's see, January 12th. wasn't that? I guess I'm not gonna say it wasn't an interesting show, but it wasn't very a planned show because we did open lines that show. One of the best episodes of January was a show about charitable bail funds, and I was discussing the topic with Ken Good, who is a Texas bail attorney and a member of the Professional Bondsmen of Texas. It was an interesting show because he was clearly against these moves to move to cash bail. And unfortunately, I think there's a lot of sheriffs out there who have been misleading the public about what cash bail does, or the elimination of cash bail does. They think it just lets everybody go free. But the point of eliminating cash bail is that we're trying to make it so that just because you're wealthy, it doesn't mean you get to get out of jail if you're accused of committing a crime that is one like, murder or rape, etc. So getting rid of cash bail is supposed to, do those things. Now, if you let somebody out who stole a candy bar from a store, and then that person goes and kills somebody, the detractors are going to say, oh, well, if he would have been in jail, that wouldn't have happened. But you can't know. You can't just assume that somebody who was accused of stealing a candy bar is just going to go ahead and murder somebody. You can't assume that at all. There's no causal effect between stealing a candy bar and murder. So it was interesting to hear his other side of his side of it. But I have a feeling that a lot of the people that are opposed to the elimination of cash bail are probably, sheriffs who are politically elected, who are funded by lots of bail bondsmen, who would go out of business if you eliminated bail. If you got to get released on your own recognizance, or you went to jail, and that's the only options, you had no bail option, what you gonna do? I mean, there's no purpose for a bail bondsman anymore, so therefore that entire industry goes away, and maybe that's a good thing. Some people might disagree, but that's why we have the show, to have the debates, to have the discussions, and to discuss this. I love you too, Wes. Thank you. And pardon my cough, I'm dealing with the tail end again of being sick. I didn't stream on Twitch yesterday because I just felt like a truck hit me. I couldn't even deal with just preparing a stream or being talkative. Now I'm okay. I'm not as run down as I was yesterday, but I still have now the cough that's going to probably last for months. So if you see me taking sips or whatever of both, or taking some cough drops or drinking my giant mug of tea, yeah, that's why. Because I'm trying to keep the throat from being sore and the trying to fight whatever's left of this stupid thing. So, and I guess, Hal feels my pain because I called in a Hal show earlier today, and it was nice to talk to him as well. So, let's see, February. February was the, we talked about conservative hypocrisy and censorship, talking about different ways that conservatives try to censor topics while hypocritically complaining about what they deem as censorship. And this came back full swing with Elon Musk's buying of Twitter, because he supposedly was a free speech absolutist, but we'll get to more of that in a second. Hint, hint on who the hypocrite of the year is. So if you're a liberal Dan patron, you could have found out about 15 minutes early, who the hypocrite of the year was before the show started. Of course, next we're still talking about COVID misinformation. COVID's still a thing. People are still getting COVID. People are still dying of COVID. Obviously, it's less because enough people have gotten vaccinated to make it less serious. But there are lots of stupid claims are still being made. People are still arguing that Fauci lied and people died or whatever, or Fauci should follow the science when Fauci did follow the science. And they like to point to his email, where the email says that he doesn't believe that people in general should be masking, and they ignore the other part of the email. Because in that email, he talks about like the N95 masking. And he basically wanted to make sure that the first responders had the N95 masks to protect themselves. So if they're in those critical situations, that they are more protected by having a well-fitted N95 mask over their face. But he did say also in that email that there could be some efficacy in keeping the virus from spreading by wearing a cloth face mask. But he didn't give that yet because he said, look, we don't have enough information. We then gained information showing that wearing a cloth mask did help to prevent the spread of the disease to other people, and as such, the science didn't change, but the science was updated to match the new facts. And that's what conservatives just seem to want to politicize science when it changes. Like when the advice changes based off of new information, that's not them lying. That's not them being, inept. That's them doing their jobs. Newton, for a while, I always use this one, Newton's theory of gravity, is correct. And it's still correct today for most things. You use Newton's equations for gravity on most things, and you get the answer for most things. But there are some things that are so large that Newton's theory doesn't quite add up. So Einstein's general theory of relativity filled in the gaps and was more correct on more things, but it doesn't handle the very small. It doesn't handle quantum gravity. So just because what we thought day one, is incomplete, that doesn't necessarily make it wrong. It can be wrong, but it doesn't make it wrong. So that's the constant fight, and I've kind of reworded my wording. I used to say that we all get it. You had to cheat to pass high school science, and so I think the words I'm using now is you chose to skip high school science. I think that's the wording I'm going with now to make it less ableist, I guess. Robert Reynolds, again, gave you a shout out earlier. Thank you for joining. Thank you for supporting the show. Kenneth Otto, thank you for having me on your show. Then again, if you go to my website, support these creators, there's links, including a link to Kenneth's links. I may have to update yours. One of yours can. So, just remind me to do that. I'll get that done. Kimchi, I also gave a shout out to you as well. Thank you as well. Hello, Carl. Hello, Teresa. If I said hello to you twice, well, then you just get two hellos. Hey. And then, what may very well have been the biggest show of the year, it was February 16th. That was when I first had Hal Sparks on my show. And I think I might have told the story to some. So you may have heard this one already, but I was my mind was blown because I had another author on my show previously through the agent, and the agent's like, hey, you've had this person on your show before. Would you consider having Hal Sparks on your show? And I'm like, what? Abso-freaking-lutely. I mean, because I loved Hal Sparks on Talk Soup. I've loved his stand-up shows. Like, I was like, oh, I was so, like, this is awesome. I was like, and I was having a hard time believing that it was actually true. And I was also, because I'd been kicked in the gut so many times during this pandemic, and not just pandemic-wise, but many different things, many different ways during since January 2020, where I've just felt just like I get excited about something and then from just me starting this job that I had doing the freelance work and making a good amount of money, and then COVID hitting, and then that goes away, to just for friends betrayal and everything. I was like, this is either he's either kidding me, or I don't know why the only reason I felt that he, or I believed him, was because he had already given me another guest. So I was like, okay, something else is going to go wrong. I'm going to lose power. I'm going to lose Cox Internet, because at the time I still had Cox Internet. I'm going to have some other issue that's going to pop up that's going to make it so that this doesn't happen. And he calls in the show, and he's scheduled to come on for like an hour from 8:30 to 9:30, and then we wind up going a full 3 hours. And as soon as the show ended, I cried, because I was just like, I couldn't believe that the show went so well, and that he, laughed at one of my jokes too, which felt good as well. So that was a really great show, and it helped introduce me to most of you great people who are currently in the chat as well. So having Hal in the show was great, in that, it did boost my subscribership a good bit, but in reality, it was great because I got to meet all of y'all, some of you in person, and hopefully maybe in 2023 I'll get to meet more of you in person as well. It was great meeting Kaz, great meeting Aaron, and I'm hoping more of that will happen as well. Hal's been really busy. I understand that Hal's been really busy. I would love to have him back on the show, but sometimes when you're a famous person and you start getting back into the swing of things, sometimes you just can't do everything that you want to do.
It is what it is.
Thank you, Donald. We also had the invasion of Ukraine. So talking about how Trump has always been a Russian stooge, and everybody was like, oh well, Putin didn't invade Ukraine while Trump was president. Well, yeah, because Putin didn't need to invade Ukraine when Trump was president, because Putin got all sorts of global power during the Trump presidency. Trump did his best to weaken NATO. Trump ceded power to Putin in the Middle East. Putin didn't have to expend any resources to gain world power. And then Biden comes in, and he's like, he knew that Biden wasn't going to take any of the crap that Trump was willing to take, because Trump was a Russian stooge. And so he had to flex his muscle in other ways. So he invaded more of Ukraine. And it's, and this is still going on. And there's the biggest thing about this is like the absolute craziness that is going on with conservatism, who used to hate Putin. Like, do you remember when there was that live mic, the hot mic issue, when Obama was like, as soon as the election's over, I'll be able to deal with y'all, more easily. Everyone's like, oh, Obama's just, gonna give Putin whatever he wants. Now the conservatives want to give Putin whatever he wants. And they're like, well, let's just let him have what he took. And I'm like, you can't let him have what he took, because then he's going to take more, because you don't give in to bullies, because they'll continue to bully. It's as simple as that. This year has been, many really busy for a lot of times. So there were some times where I just phoned it in, so to speak. And I see you, caller on the line. Hold on. Who is that on the line? Put your name in the chat if you haven't done so already. For who's calling in? I don't know. Is that Wes? Wes, is that you on the phone? Just let me know, and we'll come on in a second. So sometimes this year I just had open lines and we just randomly talked about stuff, and I can talk for an hour or more, especially depending on the news that's going on. In the world, in the country, etc. So let's see. I was discussing the Russian war in Ukraine, election rules, and COVID. So we were discussing a whole bunch of that as well. Elections, again, the whole this is a fraud, this is terrible. Of course, conservatives. Where's the freaking clip that It's not that, is it? No, it's not that. There it is.
We don't care about evidence.
Yeah, the one of my favorites, Cash Money, over on Jeff Carrera's show on 990 AM. He gets a lot of good lines in, and that's one of them. That's just perfect.
We don't care about evidence.
So, I welcomed back in March. I welcomed back Evie Winters on the show. Evie Winters, on that show we talked about Ketanji Brown Jackson, more on the terrorist war against Ukraine by Russia, and we talked to Evie Winters about this historic win by Leah Thomas, other issues pertaining to her experiences as a trans woman, some other lighthearted topics as well, probably about her love of pickles and hot sauce and stuff like that. So, hey, Andrea, thank you for joining. Hey, Benny Loco, Bill, Crimson. See if I missed anybody. I don't think I've missed anybody else who's joined since. But yeah, so I hope to have Evie on. I'm sure I will have Evie on again at some point this year. She's had a wonderful time since her transition. She has websites and blogs and Facebook pages that you definitely should be following if you haven't done so already. If you're interested in learning more about the experience of somebody who has transitioned, somebody who is very knowledgeable clearly about many issues, not just I think she has a degree in political science as well as being somebody who also does IT work. She's an amazing person, and she's funny, really funny, great sense of humor, and was in a very, very dark place early on in her life, and has been able to move that and move into a more positive space, to the point where sometimes she doesn't even know what to do with herself. And she goes over and she's so open and honest with everything about it, because I think she feels it's important for everyone else who might be going through her struggles that it can and does get better. And this is just an example of how. So if you haven't been to Evie Winters, if you search Evie Winters, you'll find her page. Evie Winters, I think, writer and something, forget off the top of my head what her page is. And she has other groups as well. Like you might want to learn more about trans people or something. Excuse me. So again, let me take some more tea. Thank you. Then of course we had Hal Sparks back on in March 30th, 2022. Again, I think that show, I may have done one of my Chopper City ads. I don't know if that was Chopper City 2 or Chopper City 3. I've had fun with those Chopper City ones. I might have to play some during the course of the show. Let's go ahead and play the first one as well, so I can take another drink real quick. This is the first one that took place right after they held the first Sturgis during COVID-19.
Well, dog, down here in Liberal Dance, Chopper City, we got some steals on Harley Davidsons today. Turns out holding Sturgis wasn't that bright of an idea, but while festival goers pass away, we're passing on the savings to you. All our Harleys come freshly sanitized for your riding comfort, and while supplies last, we're throwing in some antibacterial gel and a 12-pack of 2-ply, just in case the stores run out again. So come on down to Liberal Dance, Chopper City, and get you a hog today. Liberal Dance, Chopper City is a fictional establishment, and we don't know what the death toll of Sturgis will be.
And we'll go ahead and play the next two in a little bit. But no, Wes, I did not forget about you. So let's go ahead and bring Wes on for a second. If Wes wants to sing Happy Birthday to Andrea as live on the air, this is your shot to do so, because you do have some good pipes, Wes. So go ahead. Wes.
Ready?
Yes.
Everybody sing with me.
All right.
Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Andrea. Happy birthday to you. And many more.
We love you, Andrea.
Yes. We all love Andrea. Thank you so
Cha,
much.
cha.
Yes? Perfect. Anything else you want to talk about?
Not really. There are 3 people watching right now who have not hit the fucking thumb button. Come on, why are they so greedy?
Yes.
I have an idea. It's probably Aaron West. She is so mean.
Yeah, Erin's terrible, isn't she? No, I love Erin very much.
Yeah,
And
she
Jolie
sure
and
is.
both of the mod squads. Thank you, Wes. Thank you for calling in, and thank you for your constant support for the show. I appreciate you. Hit 1 if you want to come back on
You're
and say
welcome.
anything else. But yeah, so yeah, somebody said I don't know why they have so much, like, why people have so much hate in their hearts for trans folk. I don't understand it either. It doesn't make any sense to me, especially for people that are supposed to love everybody. You know, a lot of people say that Jesus Christ taught love. I mean, I'm Jewish, so I didn't practice that, but that's a lot of the things that they'll say. But in reality, they just have such hatred in their hearts for people, you know, and you know, they want to say, oh, they're grooming kids. No, they're not grooming kids. If anything, the people that are grooming kids are the people like the Matt Gaetzes of the world. We've seen the pictures of him with the people and the youngins and everything like that. Ugh. Anyway, so yeah, so I just can't stand. I can't abide by that. It really pisses me off. I mean, even if I didn't have family members who were trans, even if I didn't have friends that were trans, it still just pisses me off. I don't understand why people have to be so terrible. Again, it takes zero effort. At least for me, it takes zero effort to be kind. It takes effort to be mean. Now, maybe for those people, maybe their natural settings are just mean, and that's why it takes effort for them to be nice. But I just don't understand how that is. I don't understand how people can be like that. Because it's horrible. It's deplorable. Hillary Clinton was right. Half of the people who are Trump supporters would go fit in the basket of deplorables. Let's see. Only people grooming kids are the right wing nut jobs. Yep. Trying to see. I'm missing one comment in there. I don't know. Anyway, so in April, we went inside the disturbed mind of an unhinged conservative. That is when we had a Cash Money, when I played a bunch of his clips.
We don't care about evidence.
What was that?
We don't care about evidence.
Thank you, Cash Money. I think I have a bigger one as well. One of his clips. Let's go ahead and play that.
All right. Comment to the Dan. You know,
Yes.
His attitude. He's always trying to quote stats and beat up the system. You know, we're talking about elections. We all know there's more than 100,000 non-voters on the rolls throughout the country. It's not just down there in New Orleans. Let's shut down the country mid-October and for a week and re-register every single legal American voter in America. Re-register. Don't tell me we can't. We can do anything we want. We don't need time. And your regular patron, your caller, you know, who calls in all Mondays, I'm blanking.
Chad
for a minute.
Rogers, our ringside all-star Chad.
You know, he rubs me wrong. He's always, I feel like he's trying to slightly beat up on Trump to say that he didn't have enough stamina to defend against all the options that are out there. And he shouldn't have. The documents are evidence against the treasonous pigs. He took evidence. He's allowed to have that evidence. He knew exactly what he was keeping, and he needs that for his future cases against the FBI, against the Clintons, against people. We need to re-register every voter. We need to hear what we actually think. We need our intentions to deliver, and we don't need time to continually happening. 20 months in, we're gonna withstand this for 28 more months. No. This needs to end today. This needs to end this year. We need to do something as a people immediately as one, together. I don't care how, but we know our attitudes. Everybody in the country is on the same page. All 3,000 plus counties plus parishes, they'd shut the country down for a week to re-register every voter in America. Don't tell me we can't. We already know there's so many cheats on the board. Something has to be done now. And Jesse, I appreciate your passion, son. You keep preaching to us. That's all I got, Jeff.
Yeah, this is the guy that wanted to put Mark Zuckerberg up on trial for treason and then seize Facebook and use Facebook's voting mechanisms to have polls every day where the American people can chime in on what they want to do, so then the politicians have to listen to us and what we want to have done. I'm like, wait, so voting by mail is somehow rife with fraud, supposedly, though even though it's not, and y'all want to do electronic voting? Like, are you serious? Like, this guy is completely wackadoodle. See, but anyway, haven't you heard, Dan? Apparently people think it's cool to be an a-hole. Being cruel is a new thing to do. I wish these cruel people had to spend their eternity watching their cruelty. See, they'd probably love to watch the cruelty. That would be heaven for them. That wouldn't be hell. But yeah, Abbott, Governor Abbott, Governor DeSantis, those people using taxpayer dollars to ship people to blue states as to own the libs, especially in the cold, dropping off people in Vice President Harris's, doorstep when it's freaking freezing cold outside. Like, if any of those people died because of hypothermia, I would think that they should have arrested him and tried him for murder. I mean, because I think he would be guilty of it for at least aiding and abetting a murder. I think that people who run these bus companies should have said no. I think I think we need to do I think we need to look into every single bus company that did the work for DeSantis and for Abbott in shipping these folks from Texas to all these other blue states. I think that we need to put these companies on blast and make sure that it's known that these are the companies that did Abbott's dirty work, that did DeSantis's dirty work, and you should not do business with them. Make them famous, make them infamous for what they've done, for how they've mistreated folks who are seeking asylum in this country. Folks, and here's the crazy thing about it. Like, at the end of the day, I think they're wrong. They're acting extra constitutionally. I don't think they have the power to do that. I think they've usurped power that they don't have, and there should be some sort of way to put them up on charges. I think the Justice Department should go after each and every one of those people for doing that, because enforcement of border policy and immigration is a job of the federal government. Therefore, it's not a power retained by the states or the people via the 10th Amendment. As such, there should be charges that should be levied against anybody involved, up to including the governors of these states. And I am sure that if Jeff Landry in Louisiana wins the governorship the next time, I think next year, I'm pretty sure that he would jump on board and do the same thing, because he's a little follower like all the rest of them, and he loves Trump. But even with all the negativity of it, I almost want to say, all right, do it. Let's bring every single migrant, every single person who crosses that border, let's bring them all to blue states. Let's bring every single one to a blue state, so that in 2030, when the census is done, and we have to count everybody, including resident aliens who are non-citizens, we have to count we even have to count people who are here in violation of our border policies. We have to count everybody. So let them all come to the blue states. I welcome it, because then those blue states will gain many more congressional seats on reapportionment. And guess what? We'll take back Congress easily. So yeah, let us have them. Let us do the part that's played by the Statue of Liberty, which says, "Give us your tired, your poor, your hungry, wretched refuse from your teeming shores, yearning to be free." Welcome them into blue states, because the blue states are gonna completely dominate Congress at that point, because they'll just have so many more people, and the Republicans will be like, "Oops, we done messed up with this one. We should have kept them in our," because that's how these people keep power. Like Mr. You Lie, I forget his name, from Texas, who shouted out "You lie" at Obama during his speech about the Affordable Care Act. His district was like 40% resident aliens, like non-citizen. That's how he was able to win his district, because 40% of it were people who were not citizens, so they didn't have to draw in many conservatives to get a majority of the district. That's how you win. I mean, he would only need at that point 21% of the population voting for him. And that doesn't even count. So 21% of the population, that doesn't even count. No, I'm sorry, 31% of the population. My math is bad. 31% of the population, assuming everybody can vote, which is not true because you have a good portion of that, maybe a third, who is not even 18, not even voted. So it probably is 20. Probably only, at that point only needed 21% of the population in order to keep winning elections because they draw those maps. Last year, previous year, I had people who made the game Map Maker. It's a game that discusses gerrymandering. We had them on the podcast, and I had suggested a variant of the game where you throw in a third color, and that third color are people who are not voters. So you can try and capture those people into the districts, and so it doesn't count. It doesn't count towards the overall votes, but it counts as a sector or whatever. So it helps. You can use those to help draw people in and draw people out. Gerrymandering is terrible. Just give me 2 minutes behind Abbott with a tube of super glue. Crimson Mia Abbott should be removed because of abuse of power, charged with gross negligence. I think it's malfeasance. I don't even think it's gross negligence. I think it's malfeasance. It's crazy. Let's see. We discussed taxes on the show. I had a doozy of an issue with taxes. I was all ready for a rant a few weeks back on taxes because H&R Block last year included the paperwork for you to be able to deal with your 401k loans that you took because of COVID. You could spread out the loss or the income over 3 years and then pay it back at the end of the 3 years or whatever. So the first year they did it as part of their package overall, and then you just had to mail in your taxes, but it's fine. The second year, they didn't have that as part of the process. You had to pay an additional $100 just to get it done. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to pay the $100. I'm not going to pay the $100. I'm just going to pay the normal amount, and then I can do the paperwork myself because it's easy, and then adjust the 1040 by myself, and I mailed it all in. And then I'm waiting because the IRS is understaffed, underfunded. The IRS doesn't have enough people in it. That's why they want to hire 87,000 people over 10 years. And it's not just agents like the conservatives say. It's people who work in the back to process your taxes. People who work in IT to eliminate attrition. Deal with attrition as people retire, to replace them as well. But they don't want to do that. And because of... And I even got Jeff Cruer in the morning to say that if these 87,000 people were done to make sure that people got their taxes processed more quickly, then he would be supportive of it. I was like, okay, well, at least I got you somewhere. At least I got you some way along the way. But yeah, I got this letter in the mail saying that they said that my tax after like 6 months, they said that my taxes were incorrect. I wasn't getting back a $3,300 refund. I was getting back a $300 refund. And I was pissed off. And so I called in. The person on the phone was terrible. I had to write in anything. I sent everything in by mail, made my case. 2 months later, they're like, we need 60 more days to process this. And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? And I was all ready the next day to rant about it on my podcast. And then the next day I get the letter, hey, you're getting your money that you thought you were supposed to get. We're sorry. So apparently the 60 days that they need was only 1 day. And then that day I looked at my bank account and I was like, oh, look, I got paid. So I got my money back plus interest. So I guess I earned a little money on that. I don't know if I have to pay. I guess I have to pay taxes on the interest. I don't know. It's weird. Kimchi, malfeasance, skullduggery, I tell you. Shenanigans even. No shenanigans. No shenanigans at all. They want to drown government in a bathtub. Only true things ever said by a rebuke. Yeah. Let's see. Trying to see what else. Andrea said hello. Julie's here. Hey, Julie. Thank you for joining. Again, first Liberal Dan Radio producer, Julie. Then, of course, on the April 20th episode that we discussed about legalizing marijuana and how I thought that the judge that ruled in Trump's case about, that he should have the special advocate or whatever that position was that ultimately got rid of, that would be able to look at the non-classified documents to determine whether or not the Justice Department should get to look at them, which is ridiculous and stupid. And of course, the ruling eventually that overturned her ruling was basically from a Republican. It's like this person had no idea what they were talking about. Again, just more part of the coup. More coup from Trump, because he got to name like 300 plus judges during his tenure. Like he named a ridiculous amount of judges and stacking the courts, hoping to be able to continue his coup. Of course, at the end of April, we also had Hal Sparks on the show again, which was fun. This might be the one where I might have played one of the Chopper City ones. Let's go ahead and play Chopper City ad number 2.
Well, doggy, Liberal Dan Chopper City is back, and we had such a large surplus of choppers after 2 years of sturgis during COVID, it was dragging our prices down to insane levels. So we took a cue from Big Oil. We scrapped and melted down half of them to artificially reduce supply, increasing our bottom line. And in light of Dobbs v. Jackson, we're turning them into wire hangers. So with every chopper you buy, you get a 12-pack of hangers absolutely free. Share them with your friends, especially in the red states. Liberal Dan Chopper City is a fictional establishment. Do not use wire hangers for healthcare.
And of course, that was after the Dobbs v. Jackson ruling, which of course was terrible. And I think that might have been the one that Hal laughed at. I don't know. It may have been that one or the next one. Yeah, of course, the Dobbs v. Jackson. So it might have been the next month, because I think it was, let's see. No, I don't know when. Maybe it was June when it was leaked. I think it was June when it was leaked. Oh no, we on May 4th we discussed the impending doom pertaining to the draft ruling. So that was May. We discussed student loan debt. That one back in May, discussing the initially the Musk purchase of Twitter. The Musk's purchase of Twitter. And this, I think this is the case where we should go ahead and play this year's Hypocrite of the Year.
The 2022 Liberal Dan Radio Hypocrite of the Year is Elon Musk. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell looked to be a shoo-in early on, but with Musk buying Twitter, his hypocrisy has risen as quickly as Tesla stock has fallen. With Musk constantly violating his absolutist stance on free speech, I'm feeling bullish on Musk retaining the title in 2023. To find out who the Hypocrite of the Week is each week, listen to Liberal Dan Radio. Talk from the left, that's right. Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Central at Liberal Dan Radio on YouTube or blogtalkradio.com/LiberalDan.
And there you go, Elon Musk. Liberal Dan Radio's Hypocrite of the Year. Again, if you want to find out early, most weeks, who the Hypocrite of the Week is, you can always tune in, become a Liberal Dan Radio patron to support the show. I do post some of the bits there semi-frequently, depending on how busy I am that week and how early I get to do the hypocrites and the other bits that I produce for the show. So yes, we had the draft ruling by Alito. I remember, I don't know if it was during the discussion of the draft or if it was during because I did a live discussion on the draft ruling, and I also did a live coverage of when the ultimate ruling was released. And I believe, and part of the problem with the ruling was that Alito kept on talking about how abortion is not written in the Constitution, so therefore it's not something that can be said as a right. But of course, according to the Ninth Amendment, the enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people, i.e., rights do not have to be enumerated in the Constitution in order for them to be rights that are protected by the Constitution. And for Alito to say repeatedly what he said showed that he clearly has ignored the Ninth Amendment, the amendment that I call the redheaded stepchild of the constitutional amendments. And one of the best things that I loved about the conversation about Alito's ruling was the point where I basically said, this ruling is so bad, I would not be surprised if Alito wrote the ruling Lilly Ledbetter versus Goodyear Tire, and also the ruling in Salinas versus Texas. And I went and I didn't know who was the person who drafted the majority opinion in both of those cases. And I was right in both cases. And I was like, this is crazy how I was able to just guess, because those two rulings were terrible. The Lilly Ledbetter, again to remind everybody, Lilly Ledbetter versus Goodyear Tire, she determined that she was being underpaid based off of some information that she learned well after the fact. The Supreme Court, even though there was current judicial precedent that said that the clock can start ticking when you find out, and that's what one of the things that Ginsburg noted in her dissent, was that previous cases where they did allow people to charge to make payroll claims or violations of payroll laws after the fact, because they couldn't possibly know. Basically, Lilly Ledbetter versus Goodyear Tire required that in order for you to make a claim of pay discrimination, you would have to be psychic, and you would have to know immediately when you got paid a wage, and therefore you couldn't go back in time. The first time you got paid a discriminatory wage is when the clock starts ticking, not each time you got paid a discriminatory wage. Like each paycheck wasn't a new discriminatory act, which I think they should be, which the Lilly Ledbetter versus Goodyear Tire ruling caused the Barack Obama administration and the Democratic-controlled Congress at the time to draft and write and pass the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act, which fixed the Lilly Ledbetter versus Goodyear Tire ruling because it changed the laws so that this ruling was no longer in effect. Salinas v. Texas also required some sort of I don't know if it's precognition or what, but basically in the Miranda ruling, it was ruled that a person who is under arrest is assumed to not be knowledgeable of their constitutional rights, so therefore you have to explain them to them, including the right to remain silent, the right to an attorney, etc. And you therefore had to read the Miranda rights or Mirandize the individual who was under arrest. Salinas v. Texas basically said that if you're not under arrest, you don't have to be read your rights. So therefore, if you choose to remain silent but don't invoke the Fifth Amendment right to remain silent, that your silence could be used against you in a court of law, which basically said that in order for you if you're not under arrest, in order for you to utilize your Fifth Amendment right to remain silent, you have to speak. Or you have to somehow communicate that you are using your right to remain silent. And this person was being asked questions about a murder, and at some point he chose to stop answering questions. And they used that silence against him, and he lost. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. So, yeah. I could probably find other rulings and guess, that other horrible ruling, that was probably Alito too, and it probably was. Just because he writes horrible rulings. And it's come to find out that, there are people who spend tons of money to support like the Supreme Court Foundation or something, which upholds the history of the Supreme Court. And by donating money to the Supreme Court, these people have access to the justices or whatever, and they ended up getting information about rulings before they happened or whatever. Like, the Hobby Lobby ruling, I think was leaked out to the people before it ever came out, or then these people were having the opportunities to lobby the Supreme Court justices who were conservative to make sure that they ruled in a way that was supported by these fundamentalist, extremist, right-wing zealots. This is why we have a Christo-fascist, extremist, conservative court right now. Because these people are beholden to and are willing to pass make rulings that will uphold a Christo-fascist society. So, let's see, Patty Wag, I had a lawyer tell me you should never talk to the cops as a lawyer. I had my mom tell me that. My mom told me, if a cop ever wants to talk to you about anything, you ask to talk to me or you ask to speak to a lawyer. And then I've said that repeatedly on the show. It is not your job to make the policeman's life any easier. It's not your job to tell them anything. Just because if you tell them something, you always want to have a lawyer present, regardless of whether or not you were involved. If you could know that you weren't involved with anything, and it can be flipped around against you. There are so many people in jail who've been later released from jail from the Innocence Project simply because overzealous prosecutors wanted to have the win, and the win was more important than justice. So yeah, don't talk to cops about cases. Like, no, just don't. You don't have to make their job any easier for them. I mean, I guess if you're a victim of a crime, then yes, sure. But, exceptions to every rule. Like, if you're giving a statement to the police officer, you should still probably have an attorney with you just in case. Let's see. We were discussing some flaws in capitalism. I don't remember what those flaws were at the time. Back in May. Again, we also had Hal Sparks on the show as well. And let's go ahead and play the third Chopper City one, and hopefully soon we'll come up with a fourth Chopper City ad. Maybe as soon as I stop being as nasally as I am.
Well, doggy, Liberal Dan Chopper City is back with a brand new deal on Harley Davidsons for you. In light of the FBI getting a search warrant to seize boxes of documents that Donald Trump had stored in Mar-a-Lago, Liberal Dan Chopper City is having a brand new special. Every chopper will come with a coupon for 12 pounds of butter, and that coupon will be emailed directly to you. We're calling it our Butter Email Special.
Liberal Dan Chopper City is a fictional establishment, and you should have voted for Hillary Clinton.
And if you notice the theme, apparently Liberal Dan Radio's Chopper City is going to be giving away 12 packs of things, or 12 things. Maybe I should have done one for the Christmas season and done the 12, was it 12 Lords of Leaping? Or is that right? I don't know. I'm Jewish. We only get to 8 days. So, let's see. We talked about the Johnny Depp Amber Heard defamation suit that wrapped up in the beginning of June. We discussed more about the stopping the coup. We had the stopthecoup.liberaldan.com. That I'm not pushing that one anymore. And if you noticed at the beginning of the show, I'm not pushing Go Left and Grow Left anymore. It just doesn't seem. I think my efforts will be better spent doing other things than focusing on that. Yes, the butter email special. Yes. Elizabeth, hey Elizabeth, thank you for joining us. Appreciate you. Let's see. I just assumed you were going through menopause. Maybe, who knows? I mean, I'm getting up there. I have a 14-year-old now. That's something new. I now have a 14-year-old. He's going into high school next year. I'm just like, ugh, how did I get so old? And how did he get so old? Yeah, I've heard of deep fried butter is just basically butter wrapped in dough, deep fried. So basically it's just buttery on the inside and oily on the outside. It's probably really delicious. I don't think I've ever had it. I've had a deep fried Oreo before, and that's amazing. And it's much better than it has any right to be. Lots of things that are deep fried. They had something. What was it? There was a hot dog wrapped by a pickle, wrapped by cornmeal, so it's like a corn dog, but had a pickle in the middle. And I saw this at some Mardi Gras stand or something, and I was doing Uber and Lyft that year, and I was like, that just sounds really interesting, and I want to try it. But by the time I was able to stop near it and go see if they had any, they didn't have any. So I love fried pickles in and of themselves, but I've had corn dogs. I just haven't had a corn dog with a pickle in it. So one of my bucket list things to do, I suppose. Kimchi, sweet should not be deep fried. Get thee behind me, Satan. I don't know. Churros are deep fried, and that's some deliciousness right there. Especially the churros at Disney World. Of course, it'll cost you an arm and a leg because Disney World is way too expensive right now. That's why we're going on cruises instead of going to Disney World. I mean, we did go to Disney World once this past year, and it was just so much money. Oh my God, it was so much money. It was ridiculous. Let's see. We discussed the Liberal Dan Radio multiverse one year, or in June, basically discussing what it might be like in other universes. Like, you know, I was like, in this other universe, we would have Hillary Clinton might have won, or what would have happened in this multiverse, or this universe, that universe, or whatever. So, Julie, I make corn dog batter jumbo shrimp with a chipotle. I will be right there, Julie. That sounds absolutely delicious. Oh my God. And if you actually cook that that sounds like it could be gluten-free, so it's something that my wife could probably have as well, as long as it's not a shared fryer. In June, we also had a very special episode of Living as a Jewish Person. I have continued to discuss things. It wasn't as long of a show as my living life as a fat person. That was the last year. That was like last August or October. I think it might have been August. That was one of my better shows as well. But yeah, I just kind of went into, because I haven't really dealt personally with too much anti-Semitism, but like every time a menorah is vandalized, like there was an example of several menorahs that were vandalized this past Hanukkah, like it's an attack against all Jews, because it just makes us know that we're still not safe, that there are still people out there who want to kill us simply because we were born Jewish. You don't even have to be practicing. Like, people say, well, you don't go to synagogue every day or every week. You don't practice Judaism. What are you afraid of? I was like, well, they don't care about that. They think I'm terrible regardless of whether or not I practice my religion or not. So we'll have to come out to the Pacific Northwest. Run all the way out there to get some deliciousness. Jeff Curry, I have no idea what gluten is or trans fats, but I'm pretty sure I like them. Yes, like I think we said this last week maybe, or previous week, John Panette's joke. I don't know what gluten is, but it's delicious. There are some gluten-free things that are really good. We've managed to find them as gluten-free lifestyles, where people who have to be gluten-free as opposed to the people who are gluten-free by choice. As more and more people are tested and find out that the gastrointestinal issues that they've been having have because they have a gluten intolerance, they've somehow later in life revealed a gluten intolerance or allergy or whatever, and have celiacs. The more places are out there, the more places that are catering to people who are gluten-free. It's still rough. It's still rough out there. I mean, the best time we had was in California. So many places were so good dealing with that. That was one of the things that's great about Disney, is that Disney was mostly good about dealing with my wife's gluten-free needs. So, Kimchi, if you hate Jews, you probably hate black people and Asians and Native people. Staying far away from your zip code, absolutely. Unfortunately, though, there are, as I've discussed in other shows too, there are Jews that are racist against black people, and then there are also black people who are anti-Semitic, as we've seen with Kanye West. And I don't understand that, because Jewish people and black people have constantly and have a history of working together on these issues, and there's no reason for us to be fighting. We should be standing against white supremacy, standing against those people who are bigots, who want to kill both of us. But for some reason, there are people out there who buy into the anti-Semitic drivel that is sent out there, because a lot of the times there are people who think that as long as there's somebody below them, that they're safe, or that there's somehow, that at least that gives them, like, I might not be this high, but at least I'm better than them. And that's something that the people who are in the elite classes or who are in the ultra-privileged classes love to take advantage of. So get the people below you fighting amongst each other, so therefore they don't pay any attention to the people up the ladder who are, constantly throwing shit down at them. So, And of course, at the end of June was when Roe versus Wade was overturned, June 24th, my anniversary of my bar mitzvah. So I was bar mitzvah June 24th, 1989, I believe. Yes, June 24th, 1989. So I had been bar mitzvahed 22 and 11, 33 years prior. Jesus. Ugh. Feel really old. A bowl of Life cereal an hour for bed for a month. You'll poop wafers and can set your clock by it. Nice. Hey, TV2 Live, thank you very much for joining. I was going to join you, but I got caught up listening to another stream from one of the people who, shockingly enough, seemed to be somebody who was one of the Kyle Rittenhouse simps, who seemed to actually be speaking out against Kyle Rittenhouse. I don't know. I hadn't watched all of it. I hadn't watched all of it to see whether or not he actually is going to criticize Kyle or not. But that's one thing. When I called into Hal Sparks' show this afternoon, one of the things that was just shocking was that with Elon Musk's takeover of Twitter is how much conservative drivel I'm getting in my Twitter feeds now. I'm seeing so much garbage coming from conservatism. I had to flat out block that Nick Adams dude because his stuff was way ridiculous. It's like, I'm an alpha male, and as an alpha male, I eat at Hooters, and barf. Just, come on, stop it. But, like, there's no such thing as alpha man or whatever, it's ridiculous, but I like to use the line from Game of Thrones when whatchamacallit, Cersei's kid, Joffrey, goes to Tywin Lannister. He's like, I am king! And Tywin Lannister goes, no true king has to say, I am king. So, basically I say, no true alpha male has to say that they are an alpha male. And that usually gets the, that's still, wait, Kimchi, you're a young whippersnapper, still whip behind the ears. Okay. I don't feel it, but thank you. I didn't think you were older than me, Kimchi. Maybe I'm wrong. I guess I'm wrong. Oh well. King Street's Hooters sucks. Yeah, there are definitely much better wings. Unfortunately, the best wings in New Orleans went away, and they're never coming back. Never. And to the point where, like, they had a food truck, and it shut down, and I emailed them, and I was like, hey, would y'all be willing to, like, cater something if I wanted, like, you know, a couple hundred wings made with some sauce options? They were like, no, we're not doing that. I'm like, really? I want to give you money. Why won't you do that? But they didn't want to do it, so, oh well. I was trying to support a locally owned business, but it is, but wait, sorry, that's not my line. That's, there it is. It's Trump's line.
It is what it is.
Thank you, Donald. Andrea, 55 tomorrow. Oh, tomorrow's your birthday. Okay, well, I mean, I guess relatively. I guess I'm 9 years younger. It is illegal to have bad food from a food truck. I mean, those wings were so good. Like, I've talked to other people who were like, well, I was like, what were the best wings you ever had in New Orleans? And they were like, this food truck. We're like, yes. But they just went away, and I'm sad. So in reality, the only place I can go to get somewhat reasonable wings is like Buffalo Wild Wings, and that's telling you how the wings are in this city right now, is that Buffalo Wild Wings is my best option. From the look of, I mean, your picture's rather small, but I don't believe you're 56, Kimchi. You look too young to be 56. Let's see, the July 6th cruise, I had, or July 7th post, I was going on a cruise for anniversary, so therefore I didn't do much of anything, any prep, because I had to pack for the cruise. Then I came back from the cruise. So talking more about abortion bans, like the Louisiana abortion ban, and how ridiculous they are, including, like, the wording in some of these bans are like you have to permanently lose major function. So if you would temporarily lose major function or permanently lose minor function, you wouldn't be able to get an abortion. But if the doctor said and proved that you were going to permanently lose major function, then you can get an abortion. And it had to be like, it's going to happen now. You couldn't do it preemptively. So that's why one of the reasons why these laws are terrible. Of course, my view on abortion is it should be abortion on demand, no exceptions. Nobody is getting an abortion after 20 weeks unless they are having a medical issue that requires them to do so. Everybody who knows that they're pregnant and gestates beyond 20 weeks is those people are people who want to give birth, who want to have a kid, who have to make the terrible choice to terminate the pregnancy because it is a risk to their life or their health. So I'm sorry, Patty Whack, for the it is what it is. I do it more to mock Trump more than anything. So, see, Kingy Streets, I can eat the hottest wings. My wife can eat even hotter ones. Wow. I can sometimes eat the really hot wings, but I choose kind of a middle of the road a lot of the times because I don't necessarily want to burn off my taste buds. I did enter a hot pepper eating contest. I think I won something. I didn't win the final prize though. I was the only one that came armed with like jugs of milk to be able to swallow after the fact to try and to try and counteract the spice. But there was some dude who was just devouring them so quickly it was ridiculous. In July, I also had a show. Or I had a post. I was like, what would child you think equals success? I didn't have enough people respond to that, unfortunately. If you go to minicast.liberaldan.com and you can leave a voice answer there, I want to know. I'll still do the show, but I need more people to respond. Or you can email me, liberaldanradio@gmail.com. What did child you think that you would have to do or be able to do, or what would you own to say that you were successful, not just like be rich? Like what type of house would you have? Like, would you have to be able to go on certain vacations, or would you have to have something in your home? You know, what would have made you successful? I only had about 2 or 3 responses, so I definitely want more people to participate in that. So if you go to that link, minicast@liberaldan.com, and you can leave a voice message, just let me know what child you thought would equal success. And if I get a couple more people leaving messages about that, I will make my first Liberal Dan Radio Minicast in a while, and I intend to start doing that more often in the new year. I want to get on top of that, and I want to make more YouTube videos as well. Hopefully we'll get there. Let's see, we discussed at the end of July the rise and embrace of Christian nationalism. Founder of Gab was anti-Semitic, said some anti-Semitic things. MTG, Marjorie Taylor Greene, the openness of Republicans embracing all forms of hyphenated nationalism, and just it's terrible how much this bigotry and racism is growing in this country. And it's scary, and it's probably something that we'll continue to talk about into the new year, because it hasn't stopped, and it's going to continue to fester until something's done. In August, we discussed my Grow Left project, but again, I'm not really pushing that much. Of course, we discussed Lock Him Up. We discussed the investigation into Donald Trump, the seized documents in Mar-a-Lago, and all the people, of course, that rushed to his defense. I was planning on doing an MLM show that week, but I didn't do it. Then I talked about student loans and talking about the president's announcements about student loans and forgiveness, and discussing some of the arguments being made in support of and against the student loan forgiveness. Of course, one of my biggest arguments as to why the federal government should have the authority to forgive the loans is that it doesn't, if as long as those loans are currently federally held, it does not take a single expenditure to forgive those loans. You just can say, forgiven. The expenditure was already made when the federal government acquired those loans. You don't have to expend any more money. Just wipe them away. It doesn't cost one more penny. You don't have to spend anything about that. Nothing. It costs you nothing. But of course, Biden's only doing 10,000, 20,000 if you had a Pell Grant. Of course, I did have a Pell Grant, so I get 20,000, but that's nothing compared to my overall debt. So it really doesn't affect me much because I'll still pay the same amount of money once the loan payments resume. So it's not helping me, and I don't know what to do. I don't know how to. I'd rather not get that and have somebody else get their loans paid off, because it's not helping me and it could help someone else more. So I think there should be a better way to do it, a better formula to do it. But obviously, I'm not going to say no because I don't know how you would do it better, but there should be a better way to do it. Of course, August, we also had Hal again, and Je suis Hal Sparks was the name of the show because the Young Turks and Anna Kasparian or whatever was talking about those Hal Spark types. So I've been, from that point on, I've been saying, hello, fellow Hal Sparks types. I think maybe that show, Hal didn't come on because of some technical difficulties. Maybe that was when his toilet exploded, so we had him back on in September. I only posted about one show in September? That's weird. Yeah, sometimes I don't get to post the show because I do this. I plan the show so late I don't have the time to actually do the show thread on liberaldan.com. So, winding up the year here. Let's see. Kicking Straits. I don't think Chick-fil-A is that good either. Pretty salty, and their waffle fries are lousy. Yes, I don't eat Chick-fil-A ever since I heard that they're hate chicken. I don't even eat them for free. Like if somebody orders them for a party, I'm not eating them anyway because I'm not going to do that. So, because I don't want to support their bigotry, their anti-gay stance. And they're saying, well, it's not Chick-fil-A that's spending the money. I'm like, but yes, it is. It is Chick-fil-A that's spending the money because you're paying the money to Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A is paying the owners. The owners are then, these are the same people who are trying to argue that Chick-fil-A, that giving the money to Chick-fil-A isn't funding anti-gay bigotry, are the same people that will try and make the argument that that Planned Parenthood funds given to Planned Parenthood for non-abortion services somehow pay for abortions. Like, you can't have it both ways, dude. You can't say that it's fungible, that the funds are fungible in one way, but they're not fungible the other way. It's ridiculous. Julie Spencer, I've never had Chick-fil-A. You've not missed out on anything. They're not good. Not good at all. Let's scroll down to get to the last page of the shows. Talk about corruption in Florida. We had murder and corruption in Florida. Let's see. Let's copy that link address. We had Sandy Modell, who talked about the murder of his son by an individual that has yet to be charged with the crime, and all of the issues pertaining to that. That is a link to his book. You should go ahead and buy it if you want to A, support the show, and B, find out more about that information. Actually, you can also go into the episode on October 26th to learn more about that show and that episode. And I did read the entire book before the show because it was it wasn't the best written book, but it had a lot of information in the book that just had me keep reading it because I was like, I almost couldn't believe that it was happening, especially to a white guy. So, of course, we had the pre-election show and post-election show where everybody was talking about the red wave and the red tsunami, but we had the blue levy. The blue levy held up. The blue levy made sure that the Republicans did not take over This is the entire of Congress. We actually gained a seat in the Senate. The Republicans did gain a minor lead in the House, but nothing compared to what they were expected to have taken. And lots of eggs on lots of faces. And the reason why is because they keep backing Trump, and more of the country really just don't like him, and his candidates in swing areas did terribly. Now his candidates in non-swing areas, well, that's another issue. He backed a lot of people in safe seats, and I think that's part of, potentially what he might want to do if he sees the writing on the wall and doesn't think that he can win the GOP nomination. If the Republicans want to go with DeSantis, it's very well possible that Trump could try and win as a third-party candidate, being the first one doing that in a very long time, or maybe even ever. First one to get even electoral vote in a very long time is a possibility, but he'd have to do it very carefully, or else they would just hand the election to Biden or whoever the Democratic candidate would be. But I do have a video planned on that at some point. I'd like to make it some point soon. We will see. Let's see. Donald Trump, of course, announces his run. I announced my turkey of the year. Of course, in the the pre-Thanksgiving episode, other people discussed their turkeys in the year in the chat as well. December, we finally got 51. We finally got the win. Walker lost to that election, which of course he should have. It should have been not as close as it was. But there's a lot of deplorables in Georgia who were just going to back Trump's person because it was Trump's person. We, of course, had Philip Bittner on the show a couple weeks back. It was 20 days ago, actually, so it was a few Thursdays ago. That was a great show, and I did that, thankfully, because of Hal, and Hal wanting to help Phil get his message spread about what's going on in Ukraine. So I was happy to do that. For him, for the people in Ukraine, and just for the show, because anytime that Philip Bittner gets a chance to share his information and knowledge about the region is a good day for the people hearing his information about the knowledge in the region. He should have a much wider reach, and hopefully we can all make that happen. We were going to have Devontae Lewis on after the 14th. On the 14th, unfortunately, he got busy. He wasn't able to do it. He will be on at some point next year. I'm looking forward to that. He is the person who I picked. I wanted him to win. We're going to discuss a little bit about the Louisiana Democratic Party and how terrible they have been. The person who's running the party supports Republicans openly, and it's ridiculous. That person has no business being in power in the Louisiana Democratic Party. Let's see, then last week we had Joseph Gibson, and then we have today. And that's basically the Liberal Dan Radio year in review. Let's see. Didn't go to college, became a United Electricity Head. I'm all for student loan forgiveness, absolutely. Student loan forgiveness is something that's needed. It would have a very stimulative effect on the economy. Everything that's forgiven, instead of going back into the government, will go to the people who, those people will spend the money, and it will have a stimulative effect. It'll cause lots of ships to rise, so to speak. Julie, my teen is part of the LGBTQ community and has a list of companies we never buy anything from. That's awesome. Let's see. Jeff, your name always makes me hungry. Yeah, we have a curry and a kimchi in chat. We need more food in the chat, right? Real Bill P, I hardly ever eat out. Sorry for your wife. Heyo! Sorry. My doctors are afraid improperly cooked food will make me sick. After chemo, I dodged a really bad time. My wife makes everything. Let's see. Waffles with a fried egg on top, another peanut butter and syrup. Let's see, King Streets, I'm 57, I eat 1/3 of what I did when I was in my 20s. That's a lot less food. I probably need to stop eating as much food as I do, but it is what it is. Sorry, I'm not letting Trump have the word this time, I guess. I got a buddy with Korean wife that makes kimchi old style. He hates it. I love it. I would probably love to try that. Kimchi says, well, he says, you don't have to sleep with her. That's coming out of her pores. There's a funny story about that. There was this place, the restaurant was actually called Gimchi with a G. GIMCHI, and I had some food from them. They're no longer open anymore here in the New Orleans area, but I used to come in through the garage, and I ate there with some friends of mine, and then when I came home, my wife said that she could smell me from the garage. That's how much everything was emanating out of me. 2 days later, I'm smelling something. I'm like, what does that smell? And she's like, it's you. You're the one who smells. You still smell 2 days later of that food. And I was like, oh, Jesus. Let's see. Elizabeth, that would be some wonderful. Jack be nimble, Jack be quick, Jack bring indictments and make them stick. Yes, absolutely. I'm hoping that 2023 is the year that the indictments of Donald Trump finally come from the Justice Department. I understand the need to cross every T and dot every I to make sure that you're setting up the perfect case. Make sure that everything is set up properly so that you can tackle it, so you can, like you've done with the Proud Boys, like you will be doing with Oath Keepers or whatever, or maybe they did it with the Oath Keepers, now they're doing it with the Proud Boys. But there are people who are getting very, very antsy, and it needs to happen soon. We need to, hopefully now that the January 6th committee has come out with their full report, hopefully they can get more information into the hands of the Justice Department. They can corroborate all the information and work together. Excuse me. Damn. And finally get these charges. And just a couple to start with. You can add charges later if you need to. No reason where you don't have, you can just say, okay, we're going to charge you with this now, and then there might be more to come later. Simple as that. So, let's see, how come nobody asked why Elise Stefanik's name was ripped up in Trump's toilet? Who knows? Anyway, yeah, so hopefully we'll see that in 2023. Hopefully we'll see Russia lose finally in 2023. Hopefully a lot of better things will happen. Of course, we have to deal with a Republican with a Republican House, which will give me a lot more information, a lot more material to deal with. But I would rather have less material with a liberal House than have more material with a Republican House. But it is what it is. Sorry, Donald. I'm running all over your lines now. So, anywho. See, has anyone ever eaten ramps? I went to the West Virginia Ramp Festival. Family said it was sweating ramp juice. I don't know what a ramp is. What is a ramp? I don't know what a ramp is, other than something that you roll something up. I mean, I've been to West Virginia. I might have heard, because Evie Winters, one of my guests, is from West Virginia, and she may have been talking about them, but she may have been talking about something else. Ramps, wild leek, wild onion. Is it the vegetable? Wild onion. There we go. I don't think I've ever had a ramp. I might like it. Who knows? I'm more than happy to try. Let's put it that way. I'll eat anything once. So, anyway, my throat is starting to go downhill, much like the Tesla stock. So I think at this point, I'm going to probably wind up the show. And then I have to go run over to my mother-in-law's house, get her TV, put her TV in the dining room on the dining room table so that she has something to watch, because that's the room that she's staying in while she's staying with us, because we're taking care of her, because she's awesome and we love her. So, So let's go ahead. Let me find the clip to end the show. Do want to wish everybody who watches, either now or afterwards, everybody have a happy new year. I hope you get everything that you want. I mean, who knows? Maybe I'll have a video coming out in the next day or two, or before New Year's Eve. If I don't, I will be streaming tomorrow on Twitch, twitch.tv/nerdydan.com, if you would like to join me there as well. I may be shoving a couple of extra Twitch live streams in when I can, simply because of the fact that I am going on a cruise from January 8th to the 15th, so I need to make sure to have my number of live streams consistent so that I keep my affiliate status on Twitch. So there may be a couple of times where I do some live streaming in addition to Tuesdays and Thursdays. Kimchi, thank you very much. I appreciate you. Y'all are great with all of your kind words. Again, I really love y'all. Y'all have made the show a much more fun thing to do, something that I look forward to every week, simply because I get to hang out with y'all. If I don't see you on a Twitch live stream before the end of the year, a happy New Year to everybody. Have a happy, healthy, and safe New Year. Don't drink and drive. Make sure that you take care of yourselves. And I will, if I don't see you at a live stream from Twitch, I'll see you next year with more Liberal Dan Radio. Talk from the left. That's right.